So guys, today's topic is about technical excellence and what role it plays in being successful in your portrait business. And I don't want you to underestimate it, and I certainly don't want you to overestimate it. For many years growing up as a young photographer, and even today, a lot of people go, if I get better at how to take photographs, I'll be successful. And so I want to kind of give you some perspective on that, because that's partially true, but it's definitely not completely true. Now, there's 5 keys that I believe and have taught for decades are keys to being successful in your studio, in your photography business. I'm going to mention them, but we're only going to talk a little bit today about some of the things some role that technical excellence plays in creating a successful business. Number 1 is clarity, and clarity is who are you and what do you do? You know, and that's I think that's like finding yourself, right? Who are you? What's your art? What makes your heart beat faster? What are those type of things that make you unique? And really honing in and defining that. So clarity is one of the keys to building a successful brand. Technical excellence is what I would consider a second key, giving a firm foundation for that particular art form to be enjoyed immediately. And as time goes by, it needs to stand the test of time. We're going to talk about that just a little bit here in a second. The third is the magic pixie dust, and that's purpose. What's the purpose of your art? How does it serve others? What are the things in your art? And really, purpose goes down to, from a client's perspective, is what's in it for me? Instead of what's in it for you as a photographer. It's like, well, I'm an award-winning photographer, the lighting's beautiful. No. What the purpose really is for the client. They see their story told. They see the people they love celebrated. So purpose is the heart of those 5. The fourth is investment worthiness. And I tell you, there's never been a more important time for that than today, because we just can't get away from creating art in a way that will stand the test of time and will be used for years and enjoyed, and doesn't diminish or disappear or get misplaced or not experienced in the right way. All of those things. And again, that's for another time. And then the 5th of those 5 is consistency. Redundancy, consistency, both of those things kind of standing the test of time. Who are you? Finding that clarity and then staying consistent as you move forward. With all that said, today's topic is more about technical excellence. What role does it play? Is it important? And if it is, how is it important? And how can you get ahead? Do you feel like, are you one of those folks that feel like, oh gosh, there's just so much to learn today, and it exhausts me? Like, you open Photoshop for the first time, there's like 9 trillion things you can do, and then there's like 10 people telling you different ways to do it, right? It can get overwhelming. But I want to encourage you a little bit on the technical side of how you can rise to the top and do things at the highest possible level. And I can tell you from somebody who that was never my skill, and I certainly consider myself extremely competent technically, but I do so because I know what my art form should look like. So we'll talk about that, right? So let me give you a great understanding of what role technical excellence plays. Technical excellence keeps your art from being a facade. Have you ever seen something and been like, oh, that is so cool, right? Maybe it's some technique, some new app, software, something does something to an image, and you're like, that's cool. But it doesn't stand the test of time, right? It doesn't stand the test of time. And the more you look at it, the more you're like, why did I like that? It's sort of like clothing, faddish haircuts, faddish clothing, things like that. They can be a facade, and they can cause all of the other elements of your style in photography to be diminished. So technical excellence becomes a vehicle to carry your art, your message, the client's story over time in a way that stands the test of time. So technical excellence is important. And the way I like to share kind of a way to understand that is, have you ever most of you folks watching, maybe you have public access television where you are, right? And so you're like walking by and it's on just a public channel, and maybe somebody's talking or sharing something and you're like, wow, that's really neat, right? So you sit down, you've got TV in front of you, And maybe it's just somebody local, maybe not performing at their best, right? And so you're watching it, and then all of a sudden the person goes out of focus, or they walk out of the image, or the camera bounces or something, right? What happens? You turn it off, because the lack of excellence, the lack of technical excellence, causes the story to be lost. You want to be technically excellent because you want that story to stand the test of time. And you don't want somebody to just tune it out. The other side of that coin is if you go to an amazing movie, unless you're like us, right? you're like photographers like us or something, but most people, what they walk out, they're touched by the story. Maybe it sends a chill down their back, or maybe they're in tears, or maybe they've laughed, whatever it is, the story has risen to the top. That is the value of technical excellence and why it's so absolutely important. A couple of things I want to share with you along the lines of technical excellence as you think about this is, number one, if you define your style, you're going to be able to acquire technical skills at the highest level possible. I can tell you from experience, I called a friend of mine when digital came along. I had a real temper tantrum. I was just a mess. It's like, this isn't fair, right? This isn't fair. I built this business, and it was just like a whole all about Tim thing. So I was like, I have a dark room and I'm creating fine art pieces, and now these digital's going to ruin everything, right? And my friend told me, he said, Tim, the thing you know that will make you skilled technically is you know what you want. That's where that clarity, that definition comes. If you'll define yourself, and it is the things that you love, and it makes your heart beat faster, and you're excited how other people relate to it, then you can go and learn the things that make that beautiful. I knew what a beautiful print looked like. I knew it because I'd printed them in the darkroom. I know what that's supposed to look like. And so when digital came along, for me, a lot of it was carving away just like the 100 different things that didn't matter, so I could focus on the 8 or 10 that did. And then I started realizing, wait a minute, I can get from point A to point B quicker, but I can get there better, and I can create art that will hang beside, and that was a real test for me, could hang right beside the pieces we had created in the darkroom for all those years. And people would walk in and they wouldn't say, what happened? What changed? It was as good or better. It had that Walden DNA. It had the qualities that I wanted, but I got there digitally. And now I feel I wouldn't go back for anything. And I think that's kind of a really important part of being exceptional technically. So think about that. Think about if you'll carve your style out, you'll get better technically, I promise. And I think this is the other thing about technical skills, is creativity in my mind. And some of you might disagree, but don't tell me if you do. But I think creativity flows best in a box. This whole thing about being out of the box, okay, there's a level of truth to that. But I can tell you this, when you define who you are, then you'll start finessing things that you would never have time to finesse when you do 100 things, for a client. Like every day you're doing something different and you're doing all of these variety of things. It's hard to hone in and be excellent at any one thing. But when you find that skill set, when you find that style, now you'll start finessing little subtleties, maybe adding kicker lights and maybe looking for substrates and papers that produce at the highest level. And how do I have to light this for that to translate well? All of those type of things begin to weigh into your training and your decision making. And the last thing I want to share with you about technical excellence is the qualities that make, I think, a beautiful portrait. They don't come as features on your digital camera. I don't care what camera you have. It makes no difference to me. Never had anybody walk in my studio and say, oh, was that done with a Canon or Nikon or Sony? They don't do that, because ultimately we have great tools, right? But we have to learn how to use those tools. And the qualities that make beautiful portraiture, in my mind, that aren't features on the digital camera that you have in your studio or in your camera bag, lighting. I mean, you still have to light portraits beautifully, and your cameras don't do that. Composition. What about composition and design? Those things are critical, and those things rise to the top. How about posing? Posing, people think posing is like learning where to put somebody's arms and hands. It's not. It's about flattery. Posing is about flattery. And it's about knowing these things, because there'll be poses, you'll put somebody in, it'll look terrible. And it's the way you learn to do it, but it doesn't fit that person. So you don't learn posing so you can pose, you learn posing so that you can create and fix and finesse at that next level. The fourth one, I think, is we talk about the qualities that make a beautiful portrait: their lighting, posing, composition, and then of course the magic, the purpose. And I think that does have that magic pixie dust to it. But three of those are things that we can focus on being technically excellent and then rising to the top. And when you do that, that's the role your technical excellence should play. People should not, and you should not, in my opinion, say, I have the prettiest lighting and I have the prettiest backgrounds, and all those things should be a given. But you have the most impactful imagery. You have images that touch people's hearts, tell their stories, and you're putting it on paper in a way, or on canvases or whatever substrate, in a way that when people walk in and experience in their home, it wows them. And the real test of time is when they come in 6 months, in 5 years, and 10 years later, and they still say, that is the most amazing piece. It's worthy of my wall. That's what technical excellence is. That's the role it should play. And that's why it's important for us as artists. And for more information, more education, be sure to follow along with PPA.